us all together. Lord, we gather in your name as children of a sovereign God. Forever we proclaim, to God be all glory.
Well, good afternoon. How are you doing? It is August 17th, 2024. Welcome to episode 48 of The Thinking Theologian as we continue our journey throughout the Bible. So today we read Jeremiah 23, chapter 23 to 25. The title of today is Warnings to Evil Shepherds. And the focal verse is in Jeremiah 23:2. And it says, "Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says about the shepherds who tend my people. You have scattered my flock, banished them, and have not attended to them. And I'm about to attend to you because of your evil acts. This is the Lord's declaration." And so we know that leadership has a lot of positives. If you're called in leadership and you're leading, first we need to know that we all lead someone, some way, somehow. Either our families or someone at work, someone's looking up to us. So all of us are leading. But this is talking about today in the context of people who are actually in leadership, who make decisions, who do this, is that, leadership comes with a lot of positives. You get to influence people, you get to set vision and cast vision and guide people and direct people and do all of that. But there also comes a sense that leadership is really difficult because how we treat people and how we lead people really reveals a lot about our character, who we are. And as believers, it shows our trust and our faith in God in how we do things and how we approach things. And so this understanding of leadership makes a big deal because it carries more weight, and how we behave and how we look at things really should be an important aspect of leadership. And I believe that's one thing that the church as a whole has stopped looking at when it comes to pastors and other deacons and other people in leadership. They're just looking at people they know and looking at some qualities, but missing the point that the majority of the qualities the Bible tells us in Timothy and Titus are actually character qualities. They're not skill qualities, or character qualities. And that's missed. And so leadership is a great thing. It's an awesome thing to be a part of, but it also comes with a lot more serious judgment and consequences. And I think sometimes that's missed. So in the context here today, God is judging, the leaders of Israel, and who the leaders are here. Is the kings that were at the time, and also the priests. The priests who were not doing things the way they should have, and being accountable and holding the king is accountable to what's going on. So it says, "Therefore, this is what the Lord God of Israel says about the shepherds who tend my people, the people who are in charge of making decisions for the nation, both politically and religiously." And this is the accusation that God has against them. It says, "You have scattered my flock, you've banished them, and you have not attended to them. And I'm about to attend to you because of your evil acts. This is the Lord's declaration." So we have leaders here who are scattering people, who are banishing them, and they're not looking after them. And because of that, God's going to look at their evil acts, and He's going to deal with them. And so we need to know that in leadership, if we are in leadership, how we behave and how we act makes a big deal. And so Jeremiah was told that this is what was going to happen to the leaders there. But then we need to understand that if we are going to be leaders as believers, and all of us are, that we're going to be held accountable for our actions and how we treat people. Not just how we treat people, but how we lead people, how we guide people, how we engage with people. There are numerous things that leadership entails, and the people who do not lead well, they create all types of problems. And the one thing about leadership that's always interesting to notice is that even bad leaders can be successful at times and even have seasons of success. But yet when things get bad, that's when you really get to see what type of leader they are. There are some leaders that can be successful for a season, but then when things get rough in their personal life, they react a certain way. They'll make excuses. Well, hey, I'm only doing this because of that. What they don't understand is that the bad season actually is demonstrating what really their character and leadership style is, and everything else is just a front. You see this with different examples in sports. Is a great way to look at this. Is that when people are winning, everything is great. Even if they're mean and treating people horribly, excuses get made about their actions. Well, it's working because the team is winning. But when the team starts losing, those things become amplified because it's not a good leadership practice. It may get you through for a season, but it's not going to last long term, and it always comes to an end. Good leaders are good leaders, and they treat people with respect, even ones they disagree, and they treat people that they're on the same page with respect, how they communicate, how they talk, how they do things. Good leadership is good leadership. And good leaders also admit what they don't know, and they rely on others for advice and to get moved from one point to another. There's one person that I had a conversation with in a setting where they thought they were a good leader, and they would always try to act like leaders, and even want to talk about pursuing a degree in leadership, and that they are probably one of the worst leaders I've ever experienced. Well, not probably, they were the worst leader I've ever seen. And it's not because they had bad ideas, it's because of how they treated others. They gossiped about other people, and they would do other things, and they just had all of the bad qualities of bad leadership, but yet they were elevated to a position of leadership, and other people didn't see it because they knew how to play the game, and that's bad leadership. And so that's what we're talking about here, is that you do all these things and you think you're getting away with it, but ultimately there's going to be a judgment in the end, because bad leadership is not going to be tolerated. And this especially not only applies to our personal lives, but also into the church. And one of the places that bad leadership often gets overlooked and almost promoted is in the church. And that's not a knock on the church. I love the church, but there are a lot of times when people know there are bad leaders and people know there's problems, they don't want to do the work to fix it, because they know they have to look for another leader to replace. And most churches don't want to have that gap there because they don't want to be responsible for what's going on. And so we need to understand what good leadership looks like, and we also need to be good leaders. And so if you are in leadership, I challenge you to make sure that you're following after God's insight, not the world's insights. And then if you maybe you're not in a big position of leadership, but you're leading in small areas, that how can you exemplify Christ in all that you do? Because leadership really does matter, and we're going to be judged for it. Here, the nation of Israel, the leaders here are being judged because of their bad leadership practices, of how they treated people, of what they did and what's going on. And the same is going to be true for us as Christians, especially for those who lead in the church and other areas. Because leadership is a phenomenal thing to be in, but it's also a scary thing to be in, because we know God is going to hold us accountable. And so be encouraged by this today, that if you don't know how to be a good leader, you can learn how to lead, and you can learn how to lead biblically. And that's the awesome thing about what the Bible shows us. We see great examples of great leadership, of how that looks biblically, and we can apply that to our lives and to the lives of others. And so be encouraged again by this, is that leadership is something you can learn, and we can go from here. But also, if you're experiencing bad leadership from somebody, pray for them, or it might be an opportunity for you you may need to lead, because not every leader needs to be followed. And oftentimes they're not being followed. They're kind of pushing people in a direction they don't need to go, because old saying goes is that if you're leading, people should be following. You shouldn't be pushing people there. If you're having to push people to go your direction, you're not really leading. You're being a tyrant, and that's not what leadership is. And so my last thing on leadership is this: if good leadership is possible when you humble yourself and realize that you're leading people, and that people matter more than the result. Always. I know some people will always say that the results matter more. The results matter to a point, but how you treat people and your reputation is more important than the things you do, because you can seem successful and it could all fall in the end. And a great example of that, if you've never heard the podcast, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, Mark Driscoll was very talented in a lot of areas. He got a lot of passes for a lot of years. Yet his abuse and how he treated people and how he talked to people and what he did became prevalent, because there just became a limit of what people could handle, what was going on, and it created all types of problems. And so just know that leadership matters in how we live and how we go and where we go, because especially as believers, how we lead in our individual lives, but also in the church. And this is a call out for church leaders also. If you see bad leadership, obviously try to help the person, try to help them grow. But ultimately, if it's an embarrassment to the church, embarrassment to the community, and ultimately embarrassment to Christ, that person needs to be removed from leadership and not placed there. And that applies to pastors, to deacons, to Sunday school teachers, to lay leaders. You cannot allow bad leadership to take place, even if you're desperate for volunteers. And so let's make sure that we understand that there's a warning to evil shepherds, and that's what it's evil shepherds, and it's leaders here. And that's both the kings in Israel and the priests, but also in our life, our individual lives, but also the people who are leading the church, but also how we lead others. So thank you for today. I'm glad you're with us. Tomorrow we'll be in Jeremiah 26 through 29. And we will continue our journey through the book of Jeremiah as we are continually going through the prophets and then into the minor prophets. Hope you've been enjoying this time together.